Ruth,
Yes, ma'am.
what we thought we'd do is start with the two Rosies first and then just go alphabetically down the list of people who are really serious helpers and let them take about 2.5 minutes or so. And then we'll wrap up with talking about where we go from here. But most important is we want you and Buddy to talk about this experience for you, what it's meant to you and what you hope will come from it. Can you just go ahead and start? Can you hear me? Can you hear us? Ruth can't hear us, David.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So I've introduced you. Says, tell us what the Rosie movement means to you and what you hope will come from it.
Okay. I started to work right out of high school. I was about almost 19 at the time, and Carnegie, Illinois Steel had moved down from Pennsylvania and rented a space in the U.S. Naval Ordnance Plant. So I started to work there in the early part of 1942, and I worked there for the duration of the war. And I was an expediter in the machine shop, and by that, that meant that I went from machine to machine to make sure that the workers had all the supplies that they needed and were ready to go to work. And of course, there were no cell phones or any type of communications at that time. So we were the communications link between production and management. And we worked the swing shift. That was hard to get used to, but the whole experience was exciting. People were there, women were there from all over the state. Some of them had never worked outside the home before, so it was quite an experience for them. But the total experience was exciting, and you felt patriotic. Everybody worked together, and we did exactly what the Rosie stands for. We worked together, we pulled together, and we got the job done. And after the war was over, the Carnegie, Illinois Steel pulled out of South Charleston, went back to Pennsylvania. They stopped work right then. So I went back to school. Nobody had gone back to school because everybody was talking about the war at that time. So nobody went on to college at that time. So after the war, I went back to school, got my BS, got my master's at Marshall University in Huntington, and worked as a teacher for a while, and then went to the State Department of Education and retired as a supervisor of business ed throughout the state. So I traveled the state. And my boyfriend, at the time I was working at Carnegie, was captured by the Japanese, and he was on the Bataan Death March and served 42 months in Japanese prison camp. And came back. He had been totally mistreated and had all kinds of ailments, all kinds of illnesses, and I took care of him, and he died in 1997. But we had 2 sons, and I'm just glad that I was a part of the Rosie movement. I feel very, very proud to be a Rosie, and and I've said that knowing Chuck, I graduated from high school with Chuck Yeager, and I always said that was my one claim to fame. And now we just lost him last week, so I was a part of his memorial, and I was glad to have known him. So that was most of my experience. I could go on, but that's about it.
And what does the Rosie movement mean to you? What do you hope for the future, Ruth?
Well, I hope that more people realize the part that we played and the impact that we had on the women in the workforce. I'm proud of that fact. So I would like for the history to note that we did play a very important part in World War II.
And I do have to also be very serious here, folks. Many people think the Rosies are just about the work through the war, but many of the Rosies took care of disabled veterans. And Ruth's husband died early, basically because he was starved and had other problems, and was literally thrown in the death house at the Bataan March. and somehow survived it. So she had 2 sons, and she has a son remaining. And Ruth is on our board, and she's 98 years old. Hooray, hooray, right? So she's the oldest participant today. Buddy, can you tell us what the Rosie movement means to you?
Oh, the Rosie movement brought me out of being just a housewife. I didn't join the Rosie movement until after my husband passed away, because it was all Marine Corps and stuff like that for his life. But I worked at Curtiss Wright Airplane Factory in Buffalo, New York. I lived in Buffalo at the time. And I riveted P-40 wings. We worked I did the day shift. I didn't go in for the evening shift or night. And it was hard work, standing all day and holding the riveting gun and putting pressure. There was a girl on the other side of the wing. She was holding a bar against this rivet I was trying to put in. And she'd put the pressure on, and I'd say, go. And if that rivet was not flat and flush, it had to be drilled out, because a little bit of wind could work on that and it would weaken the wings. So we had a person coming behind us checking all of our rivets, so you couldn't get away with one with a little bit of crook in it. But I worked there for a year and a half. I just thought I'd travel if I joined the Coast Guard. Well, on our graduation day, where do you want to be stationed? I said west. They put me in Philadelphia. So our government's been messed up for a long time. So I was taught medicine. I was a medic. And we went out to the Naval Hospital, and I met an amputee named Earl Cornute. He had one leg off and part of a foot. Japanese hand grenade got him at the top of Sugarloaf Hill in Okinawa. We become friends, and I'd go out to see him on my day off and push him around the hospital grounds in a wheelchair, which he could handle better than I could. And them boys in that ward, legs off, arms off, there was nobody sitting there grouchy, unhappy. It was laughter, carrying on, stealing somebody's wheelchair, putting it down the end of the hall, stuff like that. I took my brother, who stopped by on his way home from the Army. I took him over to the hospital. He couldn't stand it. He says, look at those guys, and they're smiling. I says, yeah, they're glad to be alive, even though part of their bodies are missing. But I got discharged before Earl got out of the hospital. I went over there one day dressed up in the cities. And, where are you going? I said, I'm going home. So he got my address. He wrote to me, and he got out in, I believe it was June of 47. So Camp Burdett in Charleston gave amputees a new car, 1947 Oldsmobile. He got an Oldsmobile. He learned to drive. He come to New York and got me in July of 47. And we come to West Virginia, looked in the phone book, found a Reverend Ashworth. We drove up in front of the address he gave us, and it was a funeral home. We got married in a funeral home. There was no bodies, thank God. But it lasted 60 years, and he passed away in 2008 of cancer of the leg, lung, and brain. And that's when I started with the Rosies. And it took me out to schools, to the State House, all over, parades, speaking engagements. It brought out a different person than I had been. When my husband was a pastor of a church, I'd sit in the back. I was scared to death to get up in front of people. And you ruined me. I was speaking places, and it's been a joy.
And it certainly has been a joy to know you.
We
You know,
had fun, and we met a lot of people, but now it seems like I'm getting a bit older and can't remember as much, and my eyesight's going. So I think you ought to go on, get us in more history books. I heard we were in one. I hope we get in more.
I
Let them know that women can do and did. We did what they asked us to do, and we did it right.
And you
We got-
pulled together. You really pulled together, and you did
Yes.
highest quality work. And
Yes,
you really believed in freedom.
yes.
And most
Oh,
of all, you needed to end the war.
well, this junk in Washington now made me cry the other day. We didn't work like we did for a bunch of idiots. It's out there now.
Now, can everybody applaud the two Rosies? Ready, set, go. I don't know how applause will come across, right? But in any event, Buddy has been incredibly helpful to us, building a park, helping to choose many, many projects that we decided to do. Sometimes we get blamed because people wanted us to do a project that Buddy and the rest of the board didn't want to do. But she's been incredibly involved, along with Ruth and many, many other Rosies, but most of those Rosies have faded, so we have to move fast. Okay.
They are going fast.
Very fast, very fast. Bill Kamer has not come in on the line. He told me this morning that he would, so I think he might come in late. Let's go on to Frank Meering. Let's start with you now. I think you will be the next in line alphabetically. So Frank, I think I met you in 2015. And why don't you tell who you are and what this movement seems to be bringing into the world? Are you there, Frank?
Yes, thanks so much for the introduction and the opportunity to be here and join you from the other side of the Atlantic. I've worked in Berlin for a long time and then have moved to, well, I'm German by birth, by the way. So I worked in Berlin and then was hired as the head of the program of the American Studies Department in the oldest city of the Netherlands, at the Dutch-German border. And so I'm teaching American history, American visual culture, and American music to international students, with the core group being Dutch, young students between 18 and 24. And yes, we met, Anne and I, in 2015 in Nijmegen, where I took this photograph. You probably can't see it.
Ah, yes, right. Very good.
Just
And
thank
it
you.
says, Holland says thank you to the Rosies. This is June Robbins. It's the first Rosie I've ever met. And this was great. Holland says thank you to the Rosies. And when Anne asked me what do the Rosies mean to me, they mean three things at this point. In terms of academically, I'm teaching World War II history and the visual icons of World War II. And the Rosies is an internationally recognized icon. It stands for many things, and students are interested for that notion of women and self-empowerment. That's what it comes down to. And then it's my job in academia to say a little bit more about who the Rosies are and how the idea of the Rosies has developed over the decades. Personally, I'm thinking about the Rosies as being in Germany. Do we also have in Germany Rosies? No, we don't. But we have women who worked in the factories, but they have been looked upon after World War II in a different way. So I as a German can also say I'm here and I enjoy the sense of freedom because of the kind of work that women have been doing for me, born 25 years later, the kind of work you've been doing for me in order to be what I am today, and an international person enjoying freedom and security. On a third level, it's a question mark for me, and that's why I'm here, and that's why Anne invited me. For me, the question is what can I do in order to allow students, young people, to get a more personal idea that the Rosies is more than Beyoncé flexing the muscles and referring to that image. What can I do in order to help young people to get a better understanding of the breadth of work and also the complicated history that women and Rosies have been undergoing in the time before World War II and afterwards. And that question mark is something that I'm trying to work through together with Anne and hopefully with you too over the time to come.
And thank you, Frank. Also, we need to mention that Frank, not only is he German born teaching in the oldest city in the Netherlands, which of course was occupied, and has his topic is American culture. He is also seeing the bigger picture. We have spent 12 years now doing different projects, events and that kind of thing, and now we need to put it together. Frank and I had a very good conversation last week, and I can tell you that he sees the bigger picture, and we are looking for people worldwide who see the bigger picture of pulling together to do quality work, do it in a cooperative spirit to face the problems of the human family. So I think Frank gets that, and I know that he does. The big question now will be exactly what step do we want to take and how do we put it together. Thank you, Frank. And Joanna Dunlap, can you move the camera over to you? If not, we'll come back to you in a minute. There, thank you.
Hello, I am Joanna Dunlap. I am, excuse me, a retired business teacher, and my mother, I found out, was a Rosie. She made 60mm bullets at the time because I was only born in July 41, so I was too young to remember, but my older sisters do. I have become a volunteer to help Anne, and I'm 15 minutes from her, but I also live 15 minutes from Buddy. And so I have had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with her, and she has so enriched my life. I am so impressed and so thankful for these ladies who were the trailblazers for us. And I hope to be able to continue, and I would, whatever they ask me to do, I'm willing to do it. So.
And another thing about Joanna, I think is really funny, the way she came to us was she had done research on her own little street called Cannery Road, Cannery Lane, what is it?
Cannery Lane.
Cannery Lane, where they actually made food. They packed food for the troops. and she was unable to find some pieces of information, but she sent me quite an extensive and very well written report on this. And then I happened to meet her on an Amtrak train, and lo and behold, I said to her, let's add to your, she is the narrator on an Amtrak train.
A volunteer narrator.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Not
A
paid.
volunteer narrator.
Yeah, okay, all right. And the important thing is that he is going to include in the narration of this Amtrak train various places along the route that Rosie's worked, and essentially it's an example of almost any town, if they start looking, can find not only Rosie history and Rosie, hopefully living Rosies, but most important in the long run, I think, will be communities will realize that almost every community was involved, and we can get communities involved again. It's very important to start at grassroots. And I think any national movement has to be started from grassroots. John Evans, where are you?
I'm right here.
There you are.
That one with the thing on his head.
That's a wall decoration.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is John Evans.
It looks like an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
You can bring me one.
It's my angel up there. You see it?
Oh yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah, that's where I sleep at. Yeah, but my name is John Evans, and I came to know Ann probably about 1.5 years ago because my wife was working with her. She's also a board member, and
Oh, here we go.
personally, me, I spent most of my life in Atlanta, Georgia. Another place known for great movements. As a matter of fact, today's the anniversary of Dr. King,
Wow.
and they have big things going on down there. Also, I spent a lot of time in Europe. I lived in Germany twice,
Ooh.
and then came back to Atlanta.
No.
I met my wife, and then I moved to Charleston, West Virginia.
Yeah.
So,
And
and
John,
basically, my function with the organization is I'm here to help Ann do things that she doesn't have to do to make her bigger picture easier.
thank you, John.
Yeah.
You don't know how much help that is. And when we get our $1 zillion to do what we need to do, he is going to be the operations manager.
Doing
right?
fine.
Keep things neat and going, and essentially repair everything that keeps falling
nurse.
apart.
Some
Uh,
color.
John, Karen, I see
Yeah.
you up there, and I'm
Yeah.
so I'm glad that you were able to join us.
I'm telling you, the mailman and everything is such a mess.
I'm Karen Tome, and I was living in Brunswick, Maryland when I first met Ann
Yeah.
back, I think in 2012 or
Sometime.
2013. We had invited, the Rosies were our, invited to our Veterans Day
computer
Parade. We had one
with
of the oldest
Bunch of
Veterans Day
Rosies
parades in the
and
country.
people with Rosie the Riveters
So they
right
came
now.
and I met them, and we have a Rosie that lived there with us in Brunswick.
No.
So
No.
she's always in the parade and stuff
fine.
like that. But so when we met Ann, we started a program called
Thank you.
Bluebirds for Rosie. And
He said
so
you and
we
Rosie's
had
have a
the
good-
president of the Maryland Society for Bluebirds. We had her, she just lived really nearby. And so she ended up being able to get some grant money and stuff through them to be able to produce, I can't remember how many nest boxes, but quite a few, about 20, 15, 20. And we went ahead with our Rosie and with some kids and some other community members, and we went ahead and put up those nest boxes all around town, and we did a brochure also. So we had a great time really doing that work and learning more about Rosies, and the kids learned too. So it was really a neat project. I apologize, Ann, because I did not get a letter written, and David, for the legislators. We are just moving, my husband and I are moving to Pennsylvania. So now we're in Huntingdon, Pennsylvania, just about 45 minutes south of State College. So between the move and 2 other volunteer organizations I've really stayed involved with, I'm keeping busy in my retirement.
Busier than you've
So,
ever been.
but I do want to say that that what you guys have done, for me, and as far as inspiration, immense for inspiration for me. But to be, I was only the 2nd female mayor of Brunswick, Maryland, of this little town in Maryland. And there is still quite a bit of gender, what do you want to say? How do you say it?
Inequality.
Yes. Thank you.
John will always say it straight.
Yes, there really is. And it amazes me how even still these days there is still that. But anyway, I was able to become the mayor and hold the office. They had recalled the only other female mayor before, after 2 years or something. So I stayed the 4 years. I wanted another term. I lost by it was very close, very, very close. But anyway, so you were an inspiration to me. You helped pave the way for so many women to go ahead and have that courage to step up into offices and to step up and go out and do things. And you both speak great. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Aren't they? They are special, aren't they? They really are. I will say also about Karen is that first of all, you will always remember her name because she's a librarian by profession, and her last name is Tome, which means a big book, right? But Karen did a serious amount of gluing things together in Brunswick, Maryland, along with Tim Wilson, who is too ill to participate with us anymore. But I consider Brunswick, Maryland to be a model Rosie the Riveter community, and we gave them an award for that. And I hope that at some point the city will, I'm not sure that all your citizens recognize the importance of that, but they will. We're still working on putting the pieces together, and that's what this meeting is about. Marissa, where are you? There.
Here I am. We're out in the car because I had to go somewhere where I could get good cell signal.
Yes, okay.
So we got involved with the group in 2016 when we did the planting of the. This is Elliot. This is my Girl Scout Junior. When we did the planting of the
dogwood tree.
The dogwood tree at Buchanan, Upshur, and when they needed a Girl Scout troop, they wanted to get a Girl Scout troop involved, and of course my girls are always, yes, just tell us what to do. They don't even know what the job is. They say, oh, you need us, let's go. And so we did the video on YouTube on how to plant the dogwood tree, and then we planted the dogwood tree at Buchanan Upshur High School. And my oldest, who's a 7th grader now, but she was a Girl Scout Brownie at the time, which is 2nd and 3rd grade Girl Scouts. She was handed a bell by Captain Bell Bonnet to ring when the tree was being planted because the weather was not good and we could not actually go outside to witness the tree being planted. And that sort of started, I think, the ring a bell for Rosie movement. And so we had a bell donated here in Glenville. So we've got the state, West Virginia, Rosie the Riveter bell here in Glenville in our town square. And we missed it this year. COVID pandemic sort of crashed our plans for our bell ringing in the town square this year. But the girls they enjoy learning about the Rosie the Riveters and sharing that with others. And it's sort of they recognize it. They know the importance. They know the work that they did, and they put a lot of work in the bell and the plaque that's with it. There's a bronze plaque with the bell. It has names of Rosies in the state. Getting that plaque implemented with the bell was actually the Bronze Award project for that group of juniors who are now cadets. So it was the first medal award in Gilmer County too for Girl Scouts in Gilmer County. So we're trying to stay involved the best we can with the situations at hand out there in the world, but making sure that our younger Girl Scouts and those around them know all about the Rosies, the Riveters.
And let me say, Marissa, that I don't know that you know how much we appreciate you, because really so many things happen. It's hard for me to say thanks when in fact that's the name of our organization, because that's what we want people to do at the end. Be thankful for having the opportunity to work together and to accomplish something. But your work with the Girl Scouts has been really significant. And the other thing that you were mentioning is the ringing of the bell, because your own daughter was the first to ring the bell. That really has started the whole movement of ringing bells, or the whole event of ringing the bells across many countries now. So that's seriously important to us. And we're just really glad to have you involved. And we want you to also hopefully be able to work with Rosie Smith, because she's working closely with Girl Scouts. Well, we have other Girl Scout troops too. So the more that you can help us gather Girl Scout troops and essentially facilitate and help Rosie facilitate Girl Scout involvement, the better. And that's a very keen organization for involving youth.
Well, we started out, you know, that our troop, and there were some Upshur County girls when we first planted that tree, and then now there's a group of them that tried to participate in the ringing bells in their own towns and their own areas throughout the state. So it's growing, and they're getting it out, the information out there. So that's what we intended is definitely going through.
Okay, good. And you can keep us informed on that, because we're trying to pull the pieces together. Michael, are you there? Michael Kindred. There's Mike. Can you hear us, Michael?
I got you now. Hey, I couldn't get unmuted. Are we good to go?
We're good to go. Looking
My
at
involvement, like Ruth, I was part of the State Department years back, and I was like the second in charge of all the vocational schools, and so we did a statewide campaign to with the vocational schools and the Rosies, and because we had a legacy down in Somerset with Rosie Will Monroe, who was considered one of the first Rosies and worked at the Willow Run plant. But that's kind of got my involvement here, and I wanted to find some living Rosies, so I got in touch with Ann, and from that I was able to meet, you know, people like Buddy and Dot and Ruth and all that kind of stuff. It's been a great run for me. I will tell you, I have a great respect for the people that were served in World War I and World War II. Matter of fact, if you look right above my head right here, that's my grandfather's helmet from World War I that I've got hanging here in my office. And the night before last, I watched the beginning of Saving Private Ryan and the D-Day invasion, and they showed the scene with all the ships and the blimps and the dirigibles and all that kind of stuff that was out at sea. And I was just reading a friend of mine, my friend of my dad's was a B-17 tail gunner, and he's got his kind of memoirs. He passed away a few years back, but he talked about the B-17 they were flying had an engine go out, and so they replaced it. And they were flying over the English Channel a couple of days before the D-Day invasion, and he was talking about how peaceful and quiet it looked. And then they went on a bombing mission on the day of the invasion, and he was just talking about how vast the ships and everything that were out at sea that day were. And he said that was just burned in his memory. So I've got a great respect for that. And one of the things with people like, especially after getting to know people like Buddy and everybody, is just how I want to promote their legacy and what they've done and continue that with these young people. Matter of fact, I've got two gentlemen with me right now that are both 25 years old, and we're flipping a house. And we've been talking about, you know, my involvement with the Rosies and what they've done and their legacy, and trying to educate them, because again, it's not done as much in schools as it should be. And I think they're finding it very interesting. Matter of fact, we have we went by the cemetery the other day because we've got a Medal of Honor winner, and I know is this man's nephew, and he actually jumped on a grenade in a foxhole, and he's prominent in our cemetery there for what he sacrificed during the war and stuff. So there's just so much of it that impacts me in my personal life, with my dad serving in World War II and all that. So, but it's been a great pleasure and a distinct honor to be part of this board and be part of this promoting of the Rosie legacy.
Let me clarify two things there, Michael. First of all, everybody should know that Michael's in Kentucky. So even though it's Appalachia, it's definitely not the same, and it's very near Lexington, which is very flat country. So it's not really the Appalachian Mountains. We chose Michael to be our president about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm losing track, because he has a great ability to facilitate. And he is not, he can be objective without being, and still get things done. I think that's a talent I do not have. I try to be objective, but I see so many sides I don't get things done. I'm not firm enough. But in any event, he's our president. The other thing that I wanted to mention is he did bring his 2 boys to the Netherlands Embassy on Labor Day, and where basically I spoke about the importance of pulling together. And I think his 2 sons really got a history lesson that day, didn't you, Michael? The 2 boys.
Yes, ma'am. It has been very important. I think it's got them a little bit more involved in politics and just the history of what's going on in this country and World War II. So and Andrews, it's been a big part of what he's doing with his classes that he's taking right now and all that, because that's he's part of the Young Republicans and they meet, and then he's got some political activities that he's been involved with as far as going door to door for some politicians and stuff like that. But it's been a big part for him. Yeah, it was a thrill for him to meet the people up at the embassy and at the labor cabinet and all that.
And of course, this whole thing of getting youth involved, again, I will say it's very important. Pam, you're next.
Okay.
Let me do clarify that it's 1:44, and we will have to be off the line, I think, maybe in about 12 minutes, something like that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I would like to tell you about the activities that happened in Huntington, West Virginia. The West Virginia legislature agreed to name a workforce West Virginia building after Rosie the Riveter in Huntington. And a proper acknowledgement is on the inside of the building by the front door. The director of Plain and Simple, Ed Montague, had been working on identifying Rosies, and she wanted to have a gathering of the women. This was held at a hotel in downtown Huntington with 150 participants present. And the Women's Club of Huntington members acted as hostess. In connection with this, a display was built and attached to the walk-through hallway in the hotel, and it remained there for 5 years. The display is now with the Cabell Huntington Public Library, and it has been used in all 5 library branches in Cabell County. It will remain in their reference department. Blanco Glass made a beautiful glass sculpture of a woman working on a train, and it became a part of the display. A Girl Scout troop planted a dogwood tree at the Huntington Museum of Art to remember the Rosies, and the American Legion Center installed several bluebird houses on their property as a symbol of Rosie. For the past 4 years, Ring a Bell for Rosie has been observed and recognized, recognizing their work, and this happens on Labor Day. And we've been doing this across the state. A representative from Huntington also attended activities in the Netherlands, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. with Anne. And there are activities that we were able to be involved in the Thanks Plain and Simple, the American Legion, the West Virginia or the Women's Club of Huntington, the Girl Scouts, and the mayor of Huntington, and a number of other volunteers were involved in in these activities. How about that?
How about that? And to be very clear, there were three people who were working together. One was an American Legion member, Kenny Smith, who is ill now, and then there was also Jewel Matthews.
Yes.
And she's in lockdown in Woodlands
Yes.
upscale retirement center. So Pam is in effect speaking for them, but also realize that Pam she just stepped down as president of the General Federation of Women's Clubs for West Virginia. So she was president of this state, and the outreach that she has done herself on her very own, sometimes without even telling me until she had a prize to give us, has been incredible. For example, when the hotel chain sold, she went over to them and said, you know, do not throw this away. We will find a place for it. And she's the one who found the library, and the library then puts it in their branch. They circulate it to the branch, to the branches, the branch libraries. So we consider Huntington, so much has been done down there with the help of Pam and a couple of others, that we feel that that is definitely a model Rosie the Riveter community. And by the way, Karen's home, Ruth Staples came into Huntington when we had an event in 2013. And she was actually especially honored because of the woman working on the railroad, the Blanco glass artwork that was done. So let's see, Paul, are you there, Paul? There, no, I don't see him. Where's Paul?
I'm here. My mute was on.
Okay, all right, good.
Hello.
So
Can you hear me?
yes, we can. Paul, you're the only person that we have online that can talk immediately about losing a Rosie recently. And so we really wanted to have you because I think you are a wonderful spokesman for Rose. So why don't you tell us about your grandmother, or however you feel this is important to you?
Thank you. Yes, it's hard timing to be involved because, you know, she was a big part of it, and it's harder to do it without having the Rosie yourself anymore, but we knew it would come. But yeah, there was a bad COVID outbreak where she was living, and there was nothing that we could do about it. You know, they were locked in there for so long, and just days before she had been on a call with the Rosie the Riveter Trust, and so up to the end she was talking about it and still being involved, but she passed away 2 weeks ago of it. And so there was a obituary in the newspaper. They did a little story on it, and they talked about her Rosie service and quoted Anne. And so yeah, she, you know, did what she could. She didn't really, you know, for years really know about this movement, and she didn't really, you know, think what she did was all that important because, you know, they had their jobs and then they were just let go, and that was the end of it. No one talked about it again. It was just, you know, obscure. But this, you know, Anne's group helped her to realize that it was important and what they did was meaningful, and it gave a nice, you know, last couple of years project to be involved with. I wish she was involved with it earlier because there was even more, you know, she could have done going back a ways, but it's really great, you know, what she was able to do with them. So that's, you know, that's how I got involved.
I think the important thing for me with Rose was the history that she came here from a family that was escaping the Armenian genocide. And basically, she started over as an immigrant and had a really full and good life. And the other thing that's very important to me is from the time I met you there in Pennsylvania, Media, Pennsylvania, I knew that you were a very sincere ancestor. I mean, you know, you are a sincere another generation. You're not a young person like the Girl Scouts, but you are the age person that we really need to include more, Paul. And we need people, you know, in other words, who have professional skills and speaking abilities and some level of contacts to talk sincerely. But I did think that you know, I really worked hard on getting that Philadelphia Inquirer article. And I just thought it was one of the best obituaries I've ever read about anybody, much less the Rosies. They did a beautiful job. And
Oh, great.
yeah, it was beautiful. And I count that as a treasure.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Let's move on. I think I left out Catherine Antolini, but I don't know what's happened to Catherine. Is she still on here?
I'm here.
Now there you are, Kat.
Since we're running out of time real quick, I teach American history at West Virginia Wesleyan College, and I specialize in social history and women's history. So clearly then that has been exciting for me to be a part of an organization that is preserving women's history. And then it's great when I'm able to take the stories of the various women that Anne has interviewed and we've worked with and share those stories with the women and the men, but particularly with the women in my history courses, because it's making them real. Because all my students recognize the poster and they tell you, they know what the poster is. And that poster's been used, every new social movement kind of co-ops that poster. I've been trying to keep track. Every time I see a new picture of that Rosie, of the iconic poster being rewritten and reused, I've been saving it. But they don't know the real women, right, behind the poster. And so it's been nice to kind of share that with them.
And Catherine's been on our board for several years. One thing that she doesn't really talk about much is that she has done some pretty significant research. And Frank, you might want to get together with Catherine at some point, because since I'm in charge of basically making the Rosies public and by getting people to work to do something that memorializes the Rosies and learn to work together, I don't have time to be the scholar, but I think that you and Catherine can pair up, and I'm sure she'll be willing to share some great details with you. I don't know if you want to go the depth that she is in with having to do with labor, but she's done a lot of labor history research. Is that pretty much accurate, Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, it's not my main focus, but I've been trying to, add to especially when I teach these courses, I've just been focusing on women during war times.
Right.
I've been expanding, different areas.
Right. And now we're going to talk to Rosie Smith, and I see that I see her on the list, but I don't see her. So Rosie, are you there?
I'm here. I just didn't have my video working.
Okay.
Just real quick, someone said it earlier that the Rosies were the trailblazers for women, and that is certainly true for me. They were my role models, my trailblazers. At an early age, I joined the military. I started out as a private truck driver in the Army, and it was a position not very many women were in back in the 80s. And I got my commission and then transferred later to the Air Force and aircraft maintenance, another career that not very many women have been in. But I just always went back to the you can do it, we can do it kind of mentality. And my aunt was a Rosie, so I definitely knew about him early in my life, and always taught Girl Scout troops and try to do local things to recognize the Rosies. And then when I met with Ann a couple years ago and volunteered with that, I actually got to meet some of the Rosies. And someone said it earlier. I mean, it is very humbling to meet them. It's one of the highlights of my life. Some of the Rosies I consider my best friends, and I just love that I am able to be part of their life and get to know them better. Working with Ann on these volunteer things have definitely been one of the highlights in my last few years. And I started the West Virginia American Rosie, the Riveter Association, just to try to help with the cooperation between that organization and with what Ann does. But definitely, and someone said it earlier, I think it was Buddy, about, you know, how Americans are today, and definitely our ancestors, you know, time of war was much different than what's today. But, you know, I look at that and what they went through, and just, you know, overall with, you know, and like Mike said, with any movies or anything, you can see just from the weather, the area they lived in, the not getting the mail that we have access to today, and just everything, uniforms and being cold, and just everything that they fought for and for our freedoms. And then just to see what, you know, people are doing with those liberties now, it is disheartening. So I think we do need to pull America together, like Ann is doing, and try to get back to the Rosie camaraderie, and just you know, make sure we're doing what we need to do.
One thing we really need to recognize that Rosie is doing is she is in charge of all the aircraft maintenance for the Air National Guard in the United States. So this is not minor. She has a farm here in West Virginia, and she travels consistently back and forth to the DC area. And most important, I think that these are the kinds of things that we need to recognize when we start talking about STEM, science, engineering, technology, and math. And that the STEM types of things that we see being done don't necessarily show the women who are tied to the Rosies. As far as I know, Rosie is the only really what I consider to be very accomplished professional doing STEM type work who is really closely tied to the Rosies. So we like to highlight that always. And Sandy, are you there, Sandy James?
Yes, I am, Ann. I did not turn on my camera, and I don't want to lose you.
Okay.
But next time I will.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I just met Ann last year. I had no idea what she was doing. I liked her as a person so much. And then to learn she's working with the Rosies. I'm a retired French English teacher. French was my love. And not only the language, but the history. And I stress to my students the relationship, particularly World War II, landing on those beaches at Normandy, how de Gaulle, they allowed him to go first as they marched with victory through the streets of Paris. Our nation pulled together. The world pulled together. So yes, I like this movement. We would usually at the end of the year when things are winding down, watch that old black and white film, The Longest Day, and just to experience, excuse me, a little of what, you know, our country went through. And now looking at the Rosies and what these ladies have done, I'm just amazed, and I congratulate you with your work, Ann, and congratulate these ladies. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Sandy. Now, folks, as far as I know, we didn't miss anybody. Did we miss anybody? Think we got it all. I do want to just summarize by saying that these you people here are a small example of the partners that we have had over the last 12 years. And it is very clear to me that especially with Zoom, that we can get these different groups together and we can now say, you are you are one piece of a bigger picture. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And we are ready now in phase 2, which is the American Rosie movement. After all these many years of work, we are ready to put together the people, the projects, the places, the philosophies, if you will, the personalities, whatever it is, we're ready to put that together. And now we need to make a very serious effort to showing that we are a movement and that we are very sincere about not only getting people to find the Rosies, the remaining Rosies, and love them and really understand the depth of their stories, but also to do what they did, which was to work together in a peaceful way and essentially a committed way. Work is different than it used to be. We all know that. So there's many questions to be answered on exactly how will we go about it. But we are looking forward to this year, 2021, and I think this is a year we pull it together. And each one of you is so very important. And whatever you can do to help us know one another and know other people and keep the message clear that we are thanks plain and simple means thank you for essentially cooperating and joining together to do something that needs to be done and in a cooperative spirit. So whatever questions, or I would ask each of you to send me questions or ideas, comments, whatever, over the next few days. And then by Friday, I'm going to try to collect those. And over the weekend, I will send a report back to you on any thoughts or ideas that any of you have. And Frank, you're the farthest away. And and you are right there in the center of where a huge activity took place in World War II. Very important movies have been made of it. And so we're counting on you as not just an academician, but also as a concerned world citizen to be really part and possibly even a leading part in what we're doing. Does anybody else want to comment?
No, we just thank you, Ann, for all that you have done, and you really stuck with it.
I stuck with it, didn't I? It hasn't always been easy, but it's always been, it's a good thing I'm stubborn, right?
Yes.
Am I mule-headed or persistent?
Right.
Does anybody else have a parting comment?
I want to say thank you to all you guys. It's,
I really care about you, Karen. I really care about you. I don't think you understood me at first, but no, you got it. And we'll have to try to figure out if we can find somebody to substitute for Tim. Nobody will substitute for him, but I would like to have somebody in Brunswick to continue to help us. It's a really neat little city. And
I'll try.
And it's in
we're here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I'm up here in Pennsylvania about 3 weeks a month, and then about a week still in Maryland. So for the next year, I'll still be having some contact with Brunswick.
Really?
So
is that right?
I'll try. There's a new mayor, and I'll try.
Okay. Let me tell you one thing that she did. She owned an ice cream shop, and she and Anna Hess got together, and they made a Rosie the Riveter Sunday. So, you know, small projects, big projects, it doesn't matter, but we got to pull together and we got to get our message straight. And we got to have a common message so that everybody understands what we're doing. Thanks, folks. I couldn't thank you enough. And I hope you get in touch with one another. I've given phone numbers. So if you want to talk to somebody privately, about anything, go ahead and feel free to make your own connections, okay? Thanks so much, folks.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.